people that know me will know that I have 100% figured out how to recoup signature credit, abandoned credit. I've written exhaustive papers on it. We've had results. We had 600 million in the transcripts last year before the big sabotage event. This works, right? And I will debate anyone from anywhere, including Dan Needle, if you're watching, Dan, about whether this process that I've put together, which is called the Clifford Protocol, works. I've looked at it at an exhaustive level. It's 100% how the credit creation works and the recoupment of it. There's nothing about it which I'm in any doubt about, right? Now, given that I know that, and I've known that for a while, and given that we had success in 2024 and 2025 with people receiving their recoupments, given that that is a fact and we can prove it, if I only wanted to make money, why didn't I just do that for me?
Yeah.
Has anybody asked that question? I know people in our organization know this, but if I was just all about getting some money from somewhere, why would I spend 7 days a week dreaming up fraud schemes when all I had to do was recoup my own abandoned credit? And then the other thing, which many people don't know about me, is that I have built lots of algorithmic trading systems.
Mm.
And I'm very passionate about a sports trading platform that I've built, which bets on football, because I was an ex-footballer, right? And I love the mathematical challenge of it. That's a very successful platform. And if you don't, I'm not talking about betting in the UK bookmakers. I'm talking about betting in the Asian bookmaker markets. This is the same type of strategy that Tony Bloom, who's the owner of Brighton Football Club, uses. How did he finance the purchase of Brighton Football Club? Through sports betting. Matthew Benham, the owner of Brentford Football Club, they used to be partners. I've built a platform which does exactly what they do. And they've bankrolled the purchase of Premier League football clubs off the back of it.
Hey guys, wanted to say thank you so much for continuing to tune in week after week. I get loads of lovely comments about the guests and the value, and it's brilliant. So keep the comments coming, keep liking and subscribing. I think the stats at the moment are at least sort of 50 to 60% of my viewers are still not subscribed. So if you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe, please. It really helps me to grow the channel. Also, don't forget I'm over on Substack. It's at Melody Kate. And over there, you will get, as a paid subscriber, which is only £7 a month, you get early access to my podcasts. And you also get free access to private webinars, which I've now started. So if you're interested in that, go to Substack. And finally, the Willoughby Genius app, some of you will remember, Charles Fernandez has created this amazing app with different modules, and it's all about being able to claim your money back on GDPR breaches. It's about knowing what to say when you're dealing with the police or bailiffs at your door. It's got everything in there, absolutely everything. And if you want to subscribe to that, you can go to bit.ly/Willoughby app. And if you use the code MELNSP, so MELNSP, that's Never Settle Podcast, then you will get £5 off. Thanks again, guys. Well, hello, lovely listeners, and welcome, viewers. Today, I have the wonderful Iain Clifford back. And I actually asked Iain to come back on because, as my regular viewers will know, Iain's been on a few times over the last few months. Iain's also been helping me massively with my own court battles. But what I've come to realise over the last probably couple of months, I always knew it, but more so in the last couple of months, I reckon. Iain's motivation is not money. And I've heard him say this a few times over the last few years. And there is a part of you that goes, yeah, whatever. But I've come to realise that that is absolutely the truth. Iain is a man that had a lot of success in his younger years, has had all the trappings, had the lovely wife and the big house and the cars and the socializing and all that sort of stuff. And as some of you will know, the when he whistle blew, his life completely changed forever and his businesses were destroyed. And that has led him to where he is right now. But what I've come to realize over the last few months is that the main motivation for Iain is not creating another income stream out of what was Matrix Freedom is now Republic of Old Souls. It's not that. It's about freedom for everybody. And, you know, those of us that have been in this truth movement, whatever you want to call it, for a few years, that's what we want. You know, that we just want to be left alone. We want to have a nice life and we want to have clean food and water and just have, you know, and be happy, right? And we know that there are nefarious things that have been happening for the last, well, decades, but more so ramped up in the last few years. And AI is part of that. You know, this transhumanism movement is part of that. And because of the way Iain is and the way he sees the world and his problem solving expertise and solutions orientatedness, he has not only created what everybody knows him for, which is being able to reclaim recoupments through the IRS. And that's expanding. It's not just recoupments. You know, there's all sorts going on now, isn't there, Iain? Mortgage foreclosure, council tax, you name it, tax evasion, all of that sort of stuff. But more so, the Republic of Old Souls was always about bringing together people, like-minded souls who can live freely out of the system, have the free energy, the clean water, the great food, the Tesla type healing, all of those amazing things. So that's always been there, but I think that's become even more front and forward for Iain over these last couple of years. So I wanted to get him on to talk about that because most people don't really realize it. They just see Iain as just another income stream. He's making his money, but I'm pretty sure Iain doesn't make any money out of Republic of Old Souls. I'm pretty sure he doesn't, and he could certainly have a much easier life if he wasn't doing this. So welcome in. It's great to have you back on.
Well, thank you, Mel. It's been good to get to know you a bit better in the last few months, and I'm sure we'll have a few more things to say going forward, won't we, when the time is right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
and we'll leave everyone dangling on that. But yeah, I mean, I've just done a 2.5 hour interview with Andy Benson, which has just gone out on our Telegram channels, and it's going to go out on some, I think, all of our social media channels. And you know, I wish people knew me. That's all I can say. I wish more people knew me for what motivates me, the journey I've been on. We've all had a very difficult journey. I get it. You know, everyone's journey is different. You know, I'm just doing what I can with the journey I've been on, and I'm trying to make something which has been very challenging and very negative and very dark into something very light. And I literally do work every day on this. There's not a day that doesn't go by where I haven't put in sometimes a few hours, sometimes 10, 12 hours each day.
And I can attest. I can attest to that because Iain's been, you know, helping and supporting. Honestly, the amount of documents, the amount of messages, and it can be right from obviously you're 2 hours in front, right from like 5 o'clock in the morning to 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. So, absolutely, this man never stops. And I don't know where you get your time from. And then you're still doing your other stuff like your sports trading platforms and building that and all of that on top of this. And it's just like, how but you know I do know how, but for the average Joe it's just like, how the hell do you do it?
Well, I'm very driven. I always have been. I'm very passionate about what I do, and you know, one of the things that people who know me well will know about me is I never give up. You know, I'm a Capricorn. I'm the goat. I'm that thing that climbs up the hill. That you can put as many ropes on it as you want, and it's always going to keep on climbing up the hill. And that's how I've always been. So I actually embrace the problems because I think problems are gifts from the universe, problems that come in to your world, to your field of influence. I believe that you attract those problems because they actually are the opportunity to create the solution, and that takes you to a better place. And so many years ago, when I was in the younger years of my career, I used to get a bit afraid of problems because sometimes you don't know how to solve them, and the consequences of them at the moment when they start evolving and you start realizing there is a problem that you've got to deal with. It's quite easy to put the problem in the drawer or hide it under the rug, or it's quite easy to do that. And I learned many, many years ago that the problem with that is it's like they just grow, they just get worse. So the best thing to do is to meet them head on. And then you discover that there's a big solution that right in the middle of it, you find, wow, if I'd never had this problem, I never would have discovered this solution, which is actually taking me to a better place. And I strongly believe that's how the universe works.
Yeah.
I've got so many examples of it happening in my world. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, why don't you talk us through? You sent me a document earlier, and it was basically entitled something similar to sleepwalk. What the population of this planet are sleepwalking into, and I mentioned it at the beginning, transhumanism and AI takeover and the Agenda 2030 and all of that. So take us to wherever you want to go and explain your sort of thoughts on all of that, and obviously how that has influenced what you're doing right now.
well, again, I was given this problem in 2009 when my big financial services organization was destroyed. 2009, 2010. It's all in my documentary, which is the documentary is called The Disruptor. So I'm not going to go through all that. I've been through that a number of times on interviews and webinars and things. But basically, my world was turned upside down in such a way where I could never have envisioned it. I could never have forecasted it. I was on a pathway. I was doing extremely well. I'd put a lot of effort in. As you do when you build a big organization, I worked on that round the clock, and I was very, very proud of it. And then suddenly you go from there to your reputation's being destroyed, your organization's being destroyed, your marriage is being destroyed. A lot of your friends turn their back on you. Professionally, nobody wants to deal with you. So it's a huge fall from grace, right? It's a massive fall. And it doesn't just come and go very quickly. It's a gradual process. And then everything that you try and do to recover from that gets destroyed because you realize that as a whistleblower, you're very dangerous to the establishment, to the cabal. And the more you try and do to get out of the problem that they've given you, the more they push you back into it. And I can, talk for a long time about my experiences there, which I have done before. But that problem that was brought to me when I was least expecting it, and thought my pathway was, I thought I could have forecasted my pathway. If you'd asked me in 2007, what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years, I would have given you a narrative. I would have given you my pathway as I thought it was going to be, a continuation of what I'd been building, getting bigger, going to other countries, and expanding the solutions that I had developed that were working very well in the UK, and basically build them out on a worldwide footprint. That's the answer I would have given you in 2007, and there was no reason to disbelieve it. So that's where I thought I was going. Very much in the matrix, very much playing Monopoly without realizing it, very much, focusing on all my core talents, which is problem solving and, making complex things simple and all that stuff that a lot of people know me for. And then suddenly the three big pillars that really are very important get destroyed. I mean, somebody very famous once said that, what's the worst you can do to anybody? And the answer often is you take their reputation away, destroy their reputation.
Yeah.
That's about the worst that can happen. If you're in the professions, which I was, and your reputation's been destroyed, you're not going back in the professions again. It doesn't matter how many years you wait. There's always going to be that's going to follow you around, basically. So that's the first thing. The first problem I had to deal with was my reputation, which was stellar before, and all of my organisation was built on referrals. So to go from that to nobody wants to talk to you within a couple of years because of all the media coverage and the whistleblowing consequences, etc., was very difficult to accept. So what did I do? I started looking at why. So I always ask, why is this happening? And I would recommend everybody looks into why more often. Because a lot of people accept things for the way they are, but they don't actually ask, why is this going on? They just accept it. Yeah, it's happening. There's nothing I can do. So, we just have to go with it. Well, I couldn't work out for a while why they were doing this to me. Why was the cabal? Why did they destroy my organization? Why did they just try and destroy my reputation? Did a very good job of it. Why did they keep destroying every venture that I set up? Why? And then gradually you begin to realize that they're trying to hide something much, much bigger than you thought you were involved in. So I thought I was, doing very well in the financial services sector, rising up to the heady heights and joint ventures with banks and, winning awards and being near the rich list and all that stuff. And I thought that was my pathway, right? And then suddenly you realize, well, it's not suddenly, it's gradually you realize that the cabal has got a lot to hide. And they absolutely don't want whistleblowers and people that can figure a few things out. They don't want people like that who may have a reputation, a good reputation, telling the truth. So the first thing they're going to do is destroy your reputation, yeah? And they do it. If you look around the world at sort of high profile targets that they have, you'll see it everywhere. It's a standard playbook, right? Take anybody who's got something powerful to say, somebody who's got some skills, somebody who's got some abilities, and they don't want those skills or abilities to catch on. The first thing they're going to do is destroy the reputation.
Yeah.
And then they're going to keep on destroying it because that's their way of dealing with their problem. And their problem is the truth, right? That is their huge problem. Their Achilles heel is they don't want everybody to know the truth.
Yeah.
It's okay if a tiny percentage of people know the truth of what's going on, what the agenda is, but they can't afford for the masses to know what the agenda is. So anybody who's telling the truth, who might be believed, they're going to undermine the reputation because that way the majority won't listen to that person who's telling the truth. And you'll see it everywhere. If you have a look around, I'm sure you have, this is very common. Anybody who's got a big truth to tell is going to be undermined. Their reputation is going to be rubbished. So
it's the same in the truth movement, though, isn't it? People that have been talking heads for the last few years, there are a lot of people now that say, well, I just don't know who's telling the truth and who isn't, because there's been a lot of mudslinging and all of that. And you don't know, is that mudslinging coming from outside to rubbish the whole truth movement or what, but like you say, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. And what amazes me is the people that still buy it, the people that are like, well, such and such said it, but like you've said before, you have to resonate. You have to feel within, don't you? You have to go within and feel what feels true for you. And that's the only barometer any of us have got.
We're all we've all got frequencies. We're all able to tune in. We're like a big antenna. We do pick up these energies. Lots of people have done exhaustive studies on the heart being, able to connect to frequencies. You can feel certain ways. You can, if you hold something up which is very damaging, very dangerous to your heart, you can feel it. You can hold something up to your heart that's very light and bright and very joyous, and you'll feel it. There is an energy behind everything. So going back to, I started asking why. I knew what they did, I knew how they did it, but I couldn't work out for a while why. Why have they destroyed my organization? Why have they destroyed my reputation? Is it just because I blew the whistle on the banks and tried to uncover a 90 billion fraud? Is it because of that? Surely they're not that worried about it. They dealt with that. They've covered it all up. You know, do they really need to carry on destroying my reputation for so long? Why wasn't it just for a year and then they forget all about me and move on? Why did it carry on? And it's carrying on for 16 years. Why is it so important to them to carry on time and time again, putting media out through their proxies, destroying everything I build, trying to undermine me, and then trying to jail me twice? Why would they do that? Because I'm a guy who wants to know why, right?
Yeah.
I'm the kid in the classroom when I used to go when I was very young and I didn't realise what school was about. I was the guy who always used to ask why. Why do we do it like this? Why do we do it like that? Why do I have to do this or that or the other? I was always the guy who asked why. Because as far as I'm concerned, if I don't want to do something, I'm not going to do it. So I couldn't figure out why the British establishment were perpetually on this destruction path, destroy Iain's reputation, destroy his ventures, destroy his credibility, destroy his wealth, you know, destroy everything he builds. Why? Why put so much energy behind that? And when I started asking why, that's when I realized that there are certain influential people in the world that can make a difference. And I think I'm one of them. And I think they know that I'm one of them. So their plan is to perpetually destroy my reputation so that very few people will listen to me. Very few people will take up what I'm doing and join in with it. Very few people will go on the journey that I'm setting up a pathway for something, and very few people will join in with that. But then when people started to join in, and we do have a much larger organization than many people realize, then I become even more dangerous to their plan, to the cabal's plan. So then when they've gone through their reputation destruction phase, and that hasn't really worked, when they've gone through their economic destruction phase by destroying all my wealth and destroying and freezing all my bank accounts and all of those things which they've done, then the next thing on their list that they're going to do in their playbook is to jail you. Because if they jail you, then literally they lock you up for 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. You don't have access to a computer. No, you can only make one phone call a day, and that's monitored. So how am I going to run any organization in that situation? You know, if they put me into a high security jail, which is what they've tried to do, that's the ultimate way of getting rid of getting rid of what I'm doing. Get rid of Iain, you get rid of the organization. That's their thinking.
And I just think on that, it's important to sort of reiterate that, because we've seen it ourselves, you know, like previous podcasts, Robbie the Rock Catcher, you know, we had news recently that he thankfully was found not guilty in the court because I can't remember, which chief police constable or whatever she was. She's not that, but she was something else, head of something in terms of the police, and she took him to court for harassment because he was you know, calling out the bullshit, and luckily he was found not guilty recently. But his reputation, you know, has been slandered, and he's had to keep fighting and fighting and fighting, and it's against, you know, because he took on the DVLA, you know, that is the establishment, isn't it? That's part of the
Yeah.
establishment being controlled. And so it always amazes me that people Forget all of that because, like you've always said, when you're over the money, that's when you just keep getting
Mm,
persecuted all the time.
mm.
Otherwise, why would they? They would have no interest. They would have it wouldn't be worth their time or money to keep doing what they're doing. And it's the same with Robbie the Ratcatcher and loads of other people out there that have been persecuted for trying to stand up for truth and honesty or what they believe to be truth and honesty. So I just wanted to sort of embellish that a bit more because, people are still, whether it's just Simon's posse or whatever in the comments, who knows, could be. But there are still people that believe the bullshit that's been spread around about you. And I know categorically it is bullshit. I know because of the time I've spent
Well,
with you over these last few months.
I mean, I realised a long time ago that a lot of people come to a conclusion without actually looking at any facts.
Yeah,
So that, to me, being having a very logical brain is an anathema. It's like, well, how can you decide something if you don't have the facts to decide it based on what information are you basing this decision on? So people very quickly decide about me without knowing the facts. And why would you believe one side of a story when the people who are telling that story are working for the enemy?
yeah,
So to me, it's never made any sense, right? So my conclusion is, well, if people want to believe propaganda from people who are spreading it, who are trying to protect the establishment, the very people that are trying to control us and enslave us, they obviously aren't ready to be free. They
yeah,
obviously enjoy being in that position, right? Now, I know that's very controversial. And a lot of the viewers are going to say, what's he talking about? Of course, I want freedom. But if you believe what Simon Goldberg has been saying, if you believe what Dan Needle has been saying, if you believe that the FCA genuinely had a case to try and put me in jail, and if you believe that all I'm doing every day of the week, 7 days a week, all through the year is trying to find ways to defraud people, if you honestly believe all those things, if that's what you believe, right, then I don't think you're ready to be free because that mindset is a slave's mindset. And I know a lot of people are going to probably switch the interview off when I say that, but it's just the truth, right?
well, I
And I
yeah,
don't care.
yeah,
I
I have.
literally don't care about, I only care about the truth and I care about the honor and integrity of my message. And I will defend that to the hilt, right? So you know this, Mel, because you've had some insight into this. There is a lot of people in our organization who follow what we're doing. They're very tuned in. They're very positive. They give awesome feedback. They give, majorly positive testimonials. And they've come on a lot of the webinars that I've done. They've been tuned into the information that I put out there. And they don't ever once think, I wonder if Simon Goldberg or Dan Needle's telling the truth. They will not even entertain that nonsense because they know it to be propaganda, because they've seen through it. And I think that they are ready. They're on that frequency that I want to connect with them on. I don't want to connect with people that are on a very negative, dark frequency of scandal and fraud. And he's got to be, he's got to be a fraudster because look at all this money he's making and all this. If that's what people want to believe, quite frankly, Mel, I don't want to work with those people because they're not on the frequency of freedom for me. They're just not.
Yeah,
They're resonating with the darkness, in my opinion, from what are all the hundreds, thousands of people that come on my webinars. Why would I want to invest a lot of my energy trying to convince people that have already decided based on no evidence apart from propaganda? Because that isn't evidence, is it? It's just hearsay. Yeah.
no, I think I would add to that because I was having this conversation with my son recently. My son, who I've mentioned before, he's had some mental health issues over the last few years, severe anxiety, panic attacks, and he's a lot better now, thankfully, and continues to improve. But I've said to him many times over the last 3 years, there is some, for whatever reason. There is comfort in you staying where you are right now. It beats being normal again, whatever the hell normal is, and having to go out into the real world and get a job again. You know what I mean? For whatever
Mm,
reason, being like this, as shit as it is, and believe me, it's been shit, is
yeah,
better. It's better than in your mind right now, right? And he accepts that, and he's agreed with that. And then I see it on the comments on some of the podcasts, especially
mm,
the people that comment about grifters. Oh, Mel's a grifter. Oh, she's all about subscription for a Substack. She's all about getting more likes and this, that, and the other. And occasionally I'll lose my temper with it and I'll put something back, and most of the time I'll ignore it. Um,
yeah.
but I said to one person who commented recently, "You're just entitled. Why do you think that somebody
Mm.
else should spend hours and months and years of their life putting in the time and effort to research, and you expect it all for free? How does that work? Because that person
Mm,
still needs to feed themselves, they still need to clothe themselves, and whatever other bills
mm,
they may or may not be paying at the moment, where's that coming from? Coming down from the sky, is it? No. So have a little bit of respect, and I've seen it so many
yeah,
times, especially in this movement, because people don't
mm.
have much money, and I get it, but they still can't see beyond their own self-limiting beliefs, and that's what it is.
I said this to you, Mel, a while ago, and I'll say it live, right? What you do and what others are doing, putting yourself out there, inviting guests on that have got controversial things to say and processes and ideologies that challenge the system. That takes a great deal of bravery. Now, I know, because I know your situation very well, I know that you are being targeted. They can't let you win in the two big matters that you're fighting against, which I'm not going to say what they are because that's for you to say. I know that you are being targeted because of your program, this program. I know because I've been through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They targeting you in a different way as they targeted me. They targeted me because I have the ability to solve complex problems. That is the truth. They target you because you put a message out. You are an intermediary of a message that they don't want people to know about.
Yeah.
Whether all the people on your channel realize what they're actually saying and doing, and whether it actually takes people in the direction that they all want to go in, that doesn't really matter. The fact is that the people on your channel are challenging the status quo. And we've all seen how many people have been banned and shadow banned and their channels have been blocked and all that stuff, right? So I take my hat off to you and others that are doing this, right? Because it takes a bit of bravery. Nobody goes into it probably at the beginning realizing what they're taking on. Yeah, probably
Absolutely
not.
not.
So I know that as well. So I take my hat off to you. Whether they'll ban you, I don't know. They haven't done so far. So long will that continue that your show is available for people
Yeah.
on the mainstream channels. I mean, people like Sarah Westall was banned everywhere, and she can only now put her show on BitChute and Rumble and all those other sort of alternative platforms. And they did cull a lot of people a few years ago
Yeah.
from the social media. Your channels remained, which is remarkable. Then you've got Richard Bode's channel, which grew in momentum behind it, and then he realised that it probably was a lot of effort, and he couldn't really, he couldn't sustain it for all sorts of reasons. So now it's not going in the same direction as it was before. So you are one of the few that's out there in the UK, certainly, that is challenging the status quo, challenging the cabal. I take my hat off to you. So
Oh, thank you. So let's go back to what you were saying then. So the motivation for doing what you're doing now. So we sort of digressed a little bit.
Yeah, well, let me clear. I mean, I've said this before, but I'll say it again because not everybody hears my message, and sometimes they listen to my words but don't really know what I mean by them. People that know me will know that I have 100% figured out how to recoup signature credit, abandoned credit. I've written exhaustive papers on it. We've had results. We had 600 million in the transcripts last year before the big sabotage event. This works, right? And I will debate anyone from anywhere, including Dan Needle, if you're watching, Dan, about whether this process that I've put together, which is called the Clifford Protocol, works. I've looked at it at an exhaustive level. It's 100% how the credit creation works and the recoupment of it. There's nothing about it which I'm in any doubt about, right? Now, given that I know that, and I've known that for a while, and given that we had success in 2024 and 2025 with people receiving their recoupments, given that that is a fact and we can prove it, if I only wanted to make money, why didn't I just do that for me?
Yeah.
Has anybody asked that question? I know people in our organization know this, but if I was just all about getting some money from somewhere, why would I spend 7 days a week dreaming up fraud schemes when all I had to do was recoup my own abandoned credit? And then the other thing, which many people don't know about me, is that I have built lots of algorithmic trading systems. And I'm very passionate about a sports trading platform that I've built, which bets on football, because I was an ex-footballer, right? And I love the mathematical challenge of it. That's a very successful platform. And if you don't, I'm not talking about, betting in the UK bookmakers. I'm talking about betting in the Asian bookmaker markets. This is the same type of strategy that Tony Bloom, who's the owner of Brighton Football Club, uses. How did he finance the purchase of Brighton Football Club? Through sports betting. Matthew Benham, the owner of Brentford Football Club, they used to be partners. I've built a platform which does exactly what they do. And they've bankrolled the purchase of Premier League football clubs off the back of it. So if I'm able to do that and I'm able to recoup abandoned credit for myself, why would I spend 7 days a week working on the Republic of Old Souls and all the protocols that we've got, which, by the way, there's about 15 different protocols in our suite? Why would I bother doing all of that and trying to defraud people, and have a massive infrastructure of over 50 full-time people? Why would I have all that and maintain a fraud model if I could just trade the football markets, which I'm doing with live money and doing very well, and recoup my abandoned credit and spend all the time, all the other bits of time that I've got available to me doing leisure?
Yeah.
I'm 60 years old. I've been doing this for 42 years. Why am I not retired? Why am I not living on my recoupments and living on my sports trading earnings? And the reason that I'm not is because I'm not doing it for the money. I've never, ever done it for the money. Even when I had, more money than anybody on this show can probably ever dream about available to me back in my very successful days, I still wasn't doing it for the money then. I was doing it because I enjoy solving problems. I love it. I love solving problems. The more complex the problem, the more I enjoy solving it.
And that absolutely aligns with the law of attraction and all of that. When you do something that you love, the abundance flows anyway.
100%.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the problem, the why are they doing it to me, right? Well, all through my financial services career, I designed solutions to really big problems. How could you keep your money invested without losing it? That was a problem I solved with my algorithmic systems. How could you get income from property without losing your property? That was a solution that I developed. How can you solve the pension deficit problem? which is billions around the world. I solved that problem. I raised $80 million in the United States from a venture capital firm for that problem. And the firm that gave that investment into the project, my side of the venture was destroyed by the FCA, or FSA as it was, and my business partners carried on with it. They've now got $20 billion under management, solving pension deficit problems all across the US. So what I've done in my career is solve some big problems. There's many, many more things that I've done. And every time I solve them, the FCA and the establishment come and destroy them. So there's a theme in my whole story about me solving a complex problem that the establishment comes and destroys. So you have to ask the question, why do they do that? I asked that question because I didn't realize what they were doing to begin with. And the reason why they do it is very clear. The overriding and overarching agenda, worldwide agenda, is ultimate control.
Yeah.
It is depopulation. Many people already, I think, know this. It is ultimate control. And it is basically taking us from where we are now, where we think that we've got freedoms. And I use the word think that we've got freedoms very deliberately. We actually don't have very much freedom at all when you boil it right down. But there is a perception that we have freedom. There is a perception that we can do what we want when we want to do it. We can go where we want when we want to go there. That's a perception. It's not a reality that is going to last very much longer. And you see, when I started asking the question, why are they destroying everything I build? I'm trying to solve big problems, which is going to make people's lifestyles better. It's going to give them a better lifestyle. Why do they keep destroying these big things that I've built? These aren't just ideas. I built them from the ground floor up. Why do they keep coming in and destroying them? Why did they destroy my organization and all of its solutions when those things were good for for mankind? Why? And it was a puzzle for me for a long time. So like any complex problem, I can't rest until I found the answer. So I started looking into it. And I want the audience to realize that I was in a professional environment. I'm surrounded by professionals. I'm surrounded by people with a mindset, with a culture. If you said to me 20 years ago, Ian, you're going to be talking to Mel Clark about freedom and truth in a freedom community, I'd say, are you nuts? Why would I want to do that for? I'm going to be talking to these other people over here about, the things that I used to do, right? I knew nothing about freedom and truth movements, nothing at all. So my asking the question why has led me to unpack exactly what they're doing. When I say they, right, I can go into who they are if you'd like me to, right? From what I believe.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have gone down this pathway, right? So who are the controllers, right?
Well, we've heard this 13 families, and then there's something else, and it's the bloodline. And
so David Icke's been on it for 35 years. Max Egan's been on it. Jeff Berwick's on it. There's loads and loads of people that are theorizing about who are these people that control the world, right? So if we can accept that there is a controlling force, if we can accept that there is, some people can't accept that. Some people say, no, it's all random. There's no plan. There's no agenda. It's all these events that happen are just random. And there is no coordination going on. And I would say, well, if that were true, which, by the way, I don't believe that it is true, how is it that there was an alleged pandemic a few years ago where nearly every single country in lockstep did the same things pretty much at the same time? If there's not a controlling force, and if there's not a one world agenda going on, how did that all roll out like that? Why is it that, some countries, would have said, well, we're not doing it. You can do it over there if you want, but we're not going to do it. But nearly every country did the same things around the same time with the same narrative and the same story. How is it that in 2008, in the Western countries, everybody believed that there was a credit crisis, when I'm here to say there never was one? There was only the perception of a credit crisis, because there can't be a credit crisis if there's no money of substance. When every bank and every central bank and every government can print as much currency as they want, how could there ever be a currency crisis or a credit crisis? There can't be. It's like saying we ran out of air. It's an unlimited amount of it, pretty much. So you see, if there is no overriding agenda, worldwide agenda, whether the world is round, flat, oblong, I don't care really. It's probably nothing like we believe it to be, or it appears to be, but we're not going to go down that pathway. I have been down that pathway quite a bit, actually. And I don't know what the answer is, so I'm not even going to speculate, right? All I know is there's a lot that we don't know. So that's one thing I've absolutely discovered. There's huge amounts of things that we don't know about 100%. And that they don't want us to know about, right?
Yeah.
So I think we can all pretty much agree on that, yeah?
Yeah.
Then the next thing we could probably agree on is that life is changing, right? If you were to, if my grandfather was still here, he died in the 1980s, he would tell you a story about what it was like when he was growing up as a boy, right? And nobody on this podcast, because probably nobody's old enough to be his age, because I'm 60 and he died 30, 40 years ago, right? Now, if you look at the world that he experienced when he was a small boy, and he told me all about it, it's nothing like the world that we're in today, is it?
No.
Nothing like it.
Or even my mum's stories about growing up, very still outside toilets and all the rest of it, very different.
Yeah. Anderson shelters in the garden, outside toilets, and all sorts of things that the younger generation, unless they study the history, won't know anything about, right?
Yeah.
So we've moved along, and you see the myth and the perception is that everything that's happening, all these technology advancements, they're all for our benefit. We've been sold that, and most of us support it. Yeah, we've got to have a mobile phone because that's going to give us access to all these wonderful features and benefits that we can get through our mobile, right? Before the mobile, we've got to have a computer. We've got to have all these computer technologies, because if we don't get them, we're going to be left behind, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have asked this question before. Why was the internet made free of charge for most people to access? I know you've got to pay for online data, I get that, but why is the internet itself? Why aren't we all getting a bill through the door?
Well, we do from Virgin Media for the broadband, but I know what you're saying.
Oh, but that's not the internet, is it? That's just the connection to the internet. I'm talking about the internet itself, right?
Yeah.
Do we get a bill from the internet for using it? No. So I asked the question, why is that? Why is everything else, we're supposed to put our energies in and convert our energy into currency and then go and buy things and pay for things in the matrix kind of language? Why aren't we paying for the internet? Yeah, it's a good question. Because all that development that went into developing it and designing it and rolling it out, why aren't they asking for any money? And the reason the conclusion I come to, is that it's part of a control agenda. If you make it free, then everyone will start using it, yeah? If you bring technologies in that are quite expensive and then you bring the price down and down and down and down and down, more and more people will use them.
Yeah.
So none of these things are coincidences for me, right? They're all very deliberate. They're all following a plan. So what I started looking into is, okay, I can accept that there's a control agenda. I can accept that there's a lot of things that are changing all the time, and we appear to be getting better at things because of all this technology. But at the same time, is our lifestyle any better than it used to be? Arguably a lot worse.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, arguably our lifestyle is more challenging and more stressful now than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Even though there's so much more technology, so much more knowledge, so much more of everything, an abundance of information, and yet the day-by-day lives that we all lead can be pretty stressful, yeah?
Very.
For a lot in the freedom and truth community, they're very stressful, right?
Yeah.
So what is going on with that? So when I started asking the questions, why are they destroying my solutions where I'm trying to make it better for people? Why are they destroying my reputation? I come to the conclusion that because I have had a track record, and I'm doing it again, of building an organization that is scalable with solutions that work, as I used to do in my financial services days, then I've become a bit dangerous for the cabal's control agenda. So that answers the question, why do they keep destroying everything I build? Why do they try and undermine my reputation? Why do they try and jail me? It's because I have a track record of doing things which ultimately are over the target of setting people into a position of freedom and getting benefits and, you know, having a better lifestyle, when actually their agenda is the complete opposite of that. So if we can all agree that there is a control agenda, which I think a lot of people in the truth and freedom community have got no problem agreeing that, right?
Totally, yeah.
If we can all agree that they don't want our lifestyles to be better, they want them to be worse. If we can all agree that that probably we don't know anything near enough about what's really going on. Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, the old saying of, you know, how do you get mushrooms to grow? You put them in the dark and feed them shit, yeah? So that's pretty much what they do to us, yeah?
Yeah.
They keep us in the dark about what's really going on, and they feed us a load of shit, media and messages and political nonsense. So if we can all agree that, right, I don't think I would have lost that many people yet, would I? We can probably all agree those things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So then the next question I want to ask is, well, what is the actual agenda, and who is running it? Who's really behind this, and what really is the agenda? If you game theory this out, right, and I'm a big believer in game theory. So you look at all the possibilities and you game them all out, right? So you look at them from a probability point of view, you look at them from a motivation point of view, you look at the up and the down, the upside, the downside of any particular outcome. That's game theory. You look at consequences, you look at everything, right? Now, if you were in the cabal, I'm not saying you are, but if somebody's in the cabal and they're running an agenda with a lot of other people up in the higher echelons of this system, they would have also done their game theory. Because those that are playing out this agenda, who aren't the orchestrators, by the way, they're not the architects, they play the part.
Yeah.
They are very smart. Yeah. You won't be offered that position unless you've got some smartness to you. You can't play out a part unless you understand what it is you're doing. So when you get up to the higher echelons of this pyramid, all these different pyramids, health, finances, information, media, blah, 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 all these different pyramids, when you move up to the top of those pyramids, the people at the top, generally speaking, from my experience, are what I would call dark side smart. They have a darkness to them, but they're also very smart. You don't rise up to a pyramid, top of a pyramid, and be light and be stupid. So there is a direct correlation, right? The people that are at the top of every one of the pyramids, I used to call them the pyramids of power, in order to stay up there, or even to get to be introduced into the top higher echelons, you've got to be dark. Your energy's got to be dark, and you've got to be smart, because you're going to be asked to do smart stuff, which is why I was offered a deal, right? So they offered me a deal in 2007, 2008, because they thought I was going to stay with them at the top of the financial services pyramid. And when I rejected their deal, now I've become very dangerous to them, haven't I? Mm. Because I have demonstrated that I can be quite smart at getting things done. So they now want to recruit you into their higher echelons of the in my case, financial services pyramid, because they want to convert me to the dark side, right? And I wouldn't accept it. So then I've become dangerous, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you then say, well, okay, what's the really big agenda here? And I can say with a great deal of research to back this up, the control of consciousness is what they really want. So if we can all accept that consciousness is an energy, by the way, it's the energy that we all put on the monopoly board through the signature that creates the credit that you can recoup through the abandoned credit programs that we run. That energy of consciousness is what we all put on the monopoly board of commerce. I say that consciousness energy can be either light or dark. If your audience is in the right generation to know that the original Star Wars movies that came out, it was a battle between light and dark, yeah?
Yeah.
The Force, yeah, you had the dark side, the Empire, and you had the light side, the small freedom fighters. They both had their powers. They both tapped into the Force. Well, what is that? That to me is consciousness, right? Now, consciousness, like all things, there's a duality in everything. There's an up and a down, there's a left, there's a right and a wrong, there's a dark and a light. So if we can all agree that there is an energy, and that energy is consciousness, and they want to tap into the dark side of it to control us, how do they do that? How do they recruit the dark side of consciousness that we all have in us? Because we're all energy, right? How did they get us to cross from probably being, on the lighter side of the spectrum to the dark side of the spectrum? How do they do that? Well, then you look at the technology that's been around for a long time now. And if you start getting into the nanobot technology, if you start realizing what chemtrails are really all about, if you start looking at what they're putting in the food, in the water, in all the pharmaceuticals, in the atmosphere, why would they bombard us with these poisons and graphene oxides and nanobots? Why would they do that? These little tiny computers that are called nanobots, computer technology, are so small you can't see them with the naked eye, and they can grow and multiply. So why would they bring all that into the atmosphere, in the food, in the pharmacy, in everything? Why would they do that? In the death jabs, why would they put it all in there? Because when it gets in your body, they can then connect to that through the 5G towers, through the satellites, through all of the microwaves and all these other frequencies that they're pumping out all over the. If we could only see all the frequencies, we'd be blinded probably by all these different energy frequencies flying around the atmosphere everywhere, right? Why would they bother doing all that? And the reason is because they want control of consciousness. They want control of our minds. They want control of our soul. And the best way to get it is to fill us with nanobots, fill us with this technology which they can tap into. there's even evidence of where they can punish you. If you don't behave the way they want you to behave, they can punish your body from anywhere. They are connected. So we're all nodes on a great big network. And I know a lot of people are going to go, oh, this guy's crazy, but I'm not. Go and research this and you'll see that this is all true, right? This
Yeah,
technology of control is part of the control agenda. If they can control your mind, if they can control your soul, they can control consciousness, they can move us from being on the light side to the dark side. If they can reduce the population numbers, drastically reduce the population numbers, then they have a smaller cohort to control. Now that's the transhuman agenda, yeah? It's a lot deeper than that, and I've only scratched the surface.
yeah. I
If
think
you then combine that with UN Agenda 2030, which a lot of people have researched and they realize it's nothing to do with light and bright and let's all make the world better, it's the complete opposite. UN Agenda 2030 is all, they sell it to us as sustainable goals for a better environment, but in reality, it's the complete opposite. It's how they're going to have the excuse to roll out more control systems. If we look at the digital concentration camp that's rolling out all around us, so the digitization of money, there isn't any real money of substance, but everything is digital. If you get into the digital concentration camp, which is everything is tracked and traced, everything is controlled, everything is biometric. If you want to go through the airport, it's biometric, yeah? If you want to do a transaction, there's barcodes. They'll know exactly what you're purchasing. If they don't want you to purchase something because you've had too much of it already this week, your payment facility won't work. So when you add all of these things together, the control of consciousness, the control of the mind, the control of the behavior, the control of your money, the control of your travel. If people realize what the 15-minute cities are really all about, they don't want you moving outside the 15 minutes zone that they're going to permit you to travel within. So when you add all these things together, and I'm not the only guy saying this. There's loads of research to back all of these things up. If that is the ultimate problem, the next question is, who is driving it and why are they doing it? Is it a game? Is it just a big game and we're all pawns moving around the board, and we're just being controlled for the fun of it? Because a lot of people believe that is what it's all really about. Our experience this time round, because I'm a big believer that we've all had infinite lives before. We've had many, many experiences. I did a regression 15 years ago, and I was taken back through all sorts of different experiences. Very powerful. If we are energy, and energy never dies, because you can't kill energy, then if we are all expressions of energy, expressions of consciousness, it's very plausible that we've had many, many past lives, many, many past experiences, yeah?
Yeah.
So when you put all this into a game theory, right? So we've established that there's a control agenda. We've established that it's a lot deeper and darker than many people want to accept. When we've established that the best way to solve the problem is to face it and understand it. The question that I asked for a long time is, who is running this? And what is their real agenda? Because if you don't understand the enemy, how can you beat them? Yeah? You've got to look at it from the enemy's viewpoint to know what they see, to know what their plan is. So if you can get to see what they're doing from their viewpoint, then maybe you can defeat them. If you don't know what their agenda is, if you don't accept there is an agenda, you're never going to win, are you? Because you're going to be blinded by surprises that are going to overwhelm you.
Hence why there's so many theories on who rules the world or who really controls, and and oh, I can never say the word. The anonymous. I'm not even going to try. Not knowing who those 13 families are, or there's families above those families. They're just the front runners. You know, there's other families above there, and all of that. And you're just like, I ain't got a clue. And then you just give up, don't you? I ain't got a clue.
Well, I've looked into it because I have to try and understand it. I may not get every single thing right, but I have to put all the pieces in the jigsaw together to at least make a sensible picture up. One that I would want to defend, right? I'd actually want to debate it with some research to back it up, right? So I went all the way back in my research. I don't believe history, by the way. I think history is written by the winners.
Yeah.
It's all bullshit, and most of it is lies. And there's so many discrepancies in history. It's quite fascinating on its own. But there's one thing that is very difficult to deny. Even those that don't want to accept that there is a control agenda have to agree this. And I've had these discussions with people that are very, very programmed, and they don't want to know anything about any conspiracy theories. They don't want to know anything about any alternative way of thinking, but they all agree on this. They agree that there are pyramids in the world. It's quite difficult to say there aren't pyramids because there's lots of people who would swear blind that I've been to the pyramids. I've been to many pyramids, right? It's quite difficult to say there are no pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, nearly everybody on this show will say, yeah, we can agree with that, Ian. There are pyramids in the world, right? Now, if there are pyramids, if we can agree that, well, how did they get there? Perfectly symmetrical. And how is it all are cut with precision? A huge, great granite stones put into precision structures. How did that happen? Was it armies of slaves dragging these stones across deserts, hundreds, thousands of miles, and then somehow pushing them up into a pyramid shape? Could we really believe that to be the case?
That's what school taught us.
That's what the school taught us. I remember going on an excursion when I was much younger to Egypt, and they told all sorts of stories about how the pyramids were built. And I thought, none of those stories make any sense to me, because I think there are a lot of stories about the pyramids, and a lot of it's complete bullshit as far as I'm concerned. So I believe that those structures and many other structures around the world were created by an alien force. I'm not talking Martians walking around with, green Martians with zap guns and laser guns, not that kind. But there is a force, there is an energy out there that created those structures. Yeah. And if you go into the caves, and I went in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, you can go in and go underneath the pyramids, right? And there's these structures in there, and there's lots of pictures on the wall that are thousands of years old, where people have drawn pictures from that time. And there are very alien looking shapes. There are humans and there are alien looking shapes. And there's lots of evidence of these two coming together. It is my belief, and hopefully we haven't lost half the audience, that aliens mated with humans. That is what I believe, right? And that created the bloodlines. And those bloodlines have an agenda. And those bloodlines are what's running the whole agenda. And if you believe that, which I do, then you can explain how all these advanced technologies that appear to be rolled out, if you really look into them, they've all been around for a long time. If you go into the bunkers All over the world, there are underground bunkers. There's technologies in there that we don't know about yet, that have been around for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And they just roll them out gradually because we're not ready for all we can't deal that, the way that we operate as humans, we can't deal with everything coming at us at the same time. So they feed it out gradually. So we know, I think we all know, that there is a problem reaction solution model going on with nearly everything. David Icke pioneered that methodology, his analysis of what they do to change the direction of humanity. They create the problem. They then introduce the solution that nobody ever wanted before. And then everybody wants the solution because of the problem that they created, right?
Yeah.
So if we can accept that that's what they're doing, if we can accept that there is an intelligence that is not human here that's running this agenda, if we can accept that there is a problem reaction solution model that's being rolled out to shape and direct and take humanity down a pathway which most people would never want to go down if they realized where that pathway leads, then they have to sell it to us gradually and they have to roll it out so that it looks like it's for our benefit. Because we're not going to buy things which aren't for our benefit, are we? We're going to buy into things which look like they solve a problem. So that's what the direction we're going to go in. So the internet solved the problem, yeah? But actually it's part of the slavery model. It's part of the control agenda. And now the really big one that's coming in is AI. Now you can use AI and if you can control it and use it for your own purposes and it buys you more time and it brings you more efficiency, I say it's like the difference between the horse and cart and the motor car. Why would you not want a motor car?
Mm.
But if you use it in the wrong way and you let it engulf everything you're doing and you let it think for you in everything that you are doing, when you have no control over it whatsoever, which is the direction it's going in, by the way, then, that's part of the control of consciousness. If you remember the sci-fi movies where they had the hive mind never made any decisions, did it? The hive mind never said, well, actually, there's 3 options here. I want option number 2 because that's the best one for me. No, they just did option 1 because they were told to. It wasn't even an option. It was a command. It was an instruction. So that's what they want. And AI will take us towards that because we will eventually lose the ability to think for ourselves. Yeah. So AI can be a tool which we use for our benefit, to give us more time, to make smarter decisions, to run things more efficiently, or it can be part of a slavery entrapment model.
Yeah, I mean, I've already seen the AI in music. I did an album last year, and the guy I did it with, Paul, he's done an album and has used AI partly, but he's used his own creativity as well. But and the AI vocals, Jesus Christ, there's no way I can sing like that. And it's quite disheartening, and it is worrying because you're like, well, like you've just said, if you're relying on AI and you don't need a guitarist, a drummer, and a bass player anymore, you can just do it all from your laptop, then you lose all of that expertise and all of that inherent creativity.
It's the way it's going, and if you look at all the Fortune 500 companies, all the CEOs of those companies are all buying into AI massively. There's billions being invested in AI technology. Now, is that technology not already being developed? I say it has. They're taking humanity down this pathway like they took us down the internet pathway. I'm old enough to remember when the internet came out.
Me too.
It was a revolution, right? It's like, my God, what do you mean we can actually go and have a look on a computer and find things out? I mean, for most of the viewers of this show, they won't know that world.
No.
I remember the world before the internet. You had to go and find things out yourself. You couldn't just go on your phone or go on your computer and find stuff out. Now, if you ask someone to go and find something out and they'd say, where's the computer terminal? I need to get online. So you see, we've moved into this way of doing things, which is now completely reliant on the internet. We will become completely reliant on AI going forward. And if they then take control of our consciousness and move us from the light to the dark, because I believe the alien energy is a darker energy. How could it be light when all it's trying to do is destroy humanity? It's a very, very gradual takeover of humanity. It's not great big shock and horror events. It's gradual. It's very, very gradual.
So if it is this alien energy, this darker energy, there's been so many theories, like, people believe in reptilians and they were here first, and however long ago it was, they were driven off this planet, but some of them went underground. And it's those that have breeded and carried on this pure bloodline or whatever. You're saying it's an alien energy, fallen angel, all of that sort of stuff. I'm trying Nephilia. I'm trying to remember what
The
they're
Nephilims, yeah,
Nephilim.
Nephilim, yeah.
So why, if it is this alien energy, why?
Well, what I'm saying is it's Star Wars, right? Star Wars, to me, hits the nail on the head. You have the Force. The Force is consciousness. So in the original Star Wars movies, the trilogy,
Yeah,
you basically had consciousness, which is the Force. Remember, in all the movies, they're telling you what's going on.
definitely. Yeah,
There's so many examples of movies that are telling us all what's going on, but they dress it up as a sci-fi or a fiction movie, but it actually is what's going on. So to me, Star Wars, which I remember when it first came out, people queued round the block
yeah.
to get a seat to watch Star Wars, right? It was absolutely mind-blowing as a movie in that time, right?
Mm.
And people watched it because it was a very entertaining movie. But when you look at it from a different lens, what they're actually telling you in that movie is that there is a force. And there is a dark and a light side of a force, an energy. And if you tune into the dark side, you will have as much power, just about, as if you tune into the light side. And then there's a constant battle between the dark and the light. It all starts, in my opinion, with light energy. The spark of the universe, the God spark, right? I'm not religious, by the way, but what they call the God spark. Yeah? The infinite energy. Yeah? That starts light. And then you can move to the dark side of the force, right? So if you look at Darth Vader,
Yeah.
if you know the characters of the Star Wars movie, you've got Darth Vader who starts in the light. He then crosses to the dark. It's very attractive on the dark side of the force. He's got lots of power. He's got lots of trappings. He's got lots of things that a lot of people would want. And then just before he's about to move on to the next video game that he's going to play, he comes back to the light. If you watch the movie, if you don't know the movie, watch the original Star Wars. That's what's happening. I believe we all start in the light. A lot of energy is attracted to the dark, which is why there's like egregious things going on in the world, psychopaths, all sorts of egregious stuff going on. Is people don't seem to have a consciousness because they're tuned in with the dark side. I have to say, a lot of people that tune into propaganda are being attracted by the dark side. Why would anybody want to hurl abuse at somebody else? Why would anybody else want to harm anybody else? Is it not that dark energy that creates that motivation for that? Why would anybody get an enjoyment by being psychopathic? It's got to be dark energy for me, right? So you can move from the light to the dark, from the dark to the light. And what they're trying to do, and I say the force that came to this planet thousands of years ago, I believe, mated with the humans and have had this agenda, have had this control agenda for millenniums. Now, we could go one step further and say, is there any time? Because if we all think that the time starts here, we're in the now, and then we end up there, so there's a yesterday, there's a now, and there's a tomorrow, then millenniums is a long time to wait to run your agenda, yeah? If you're running an agenda and you're going to wait for millenniums for you to see the fruits of it, to see the outcome of it. But suppose there is no time. Suppose you get into Eckhart Tolle's and many others that say there's only now and everything else is an illusion.
Or everything's happening all at once.
It's all happening at once, yeah, because there is only now. Every time, right as we are talking now, it's very, very difficult for us to consider that nothing that happened before and that right now probably ever happened. Because everything is happening simultaneously now. And then people are going to go, yeah, but I can play a movie from my phone from yesterday. So how does that work? That's because you can capture everything in the now and you can play it in the now, even though it was recorded in the past, or what appears to be in the past. But is there a past? Is there a future? Or is everything happening now?
I think it's easy.
Everything happening now makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and me. I think it's easier to believe that there might not be a future because obviously the future hasn't happened, allegedly. Then there's no past because we all have memories of the past or what we deem as the past. And so that
we deem them memories, yeah. But are they memories?
Yeah.
Because you see, if everything's happening simultaneously, what appears to be memories is actually happening now. You've got to think about this for a long time.
Yeah.
Which I have done, right? If there's only now, and there are a lot of people out there who believe there's only now, right? I'm not a lone voice on this, and I didn't come up with the theory of it, but I have looked into it because I look into a lot of things, and it makes absolute sense to me that there is nothing other than now. And there is a perception of the past and there's a perception of the future, right?
And do you buy into the parallel realities?
Yeah, because if there's only now, everything is happening in parallel, right?
Yeah.
There's so many realms that we're not aware of that are all happening now. If you get into, past life regression, which is all happening now, if you get into those people that leave their body and have an experience where they're looking down and all that stuff. Definitely. If you get into, if you get into the information about people that do, they do that shifting where they can shift from one place to another, remote viewing and all that stuff. That's because it's all happening now. So, I mean, we could go on about this for a long time, but the reason why I bring all this up is because where we are right now, if everything is in the now, right, we can make our own futures up, which is all happening now, but we can shape our future. I just use the word future. It's all now, but we can go on a different pathway. We can make a different movie up, right? So this might be too deep for a lot of people on the show. I don't know, but the reason why I spend 7 days a week working on this is very, very simple. I don't like where I think we're going, whether it's all happening now, whether there is a future. I don't like the look of it. I've experienced 16 years of control of my life at a level that a lot of people would never be aware of, or would never probably survive. Because a lot of people have said to me, "How are you still here with all the things you've had to deal with?" Right. So my motivation for those people that still believe that I'm sitting here talking to you, dreaming up fraud schemes, is because I don't want there to be a dystopian world where we aren't able to think, where we have to do everything that we are instructed to do in the way that the cabal want us to do it, where we are basically cyborgs. I don't want to experience that. I don't want the people I love to be like that. I want freedom. And the way I want to get freedom is to build an alternative, not to go to war, an alternative community that has its own infrastructure. And that is why I sit here 7 days a week, because I absolutely know that there is free energy out there right now. There's technology for free energy. There's technology for pure water from the atmosphere. There's technology that can enable us to heal just about any ailment with all sorts of technologies that are already out there. There's solutions right now for communications that aren't tracked and traced, where we don't have to worry about everything we say and do being tracked. There's technologies out there for where farmers can bring food straight from the farm straight to the table. There's technologies out there which will enable us to travel without passports and borders. We can build our own currency so that all of our community can interact with each other using substance-backed currency. And then we don't have to listen to the cabal's agenda. We don't have to take part in it. We don't have to listen to it. We have our own community. Now, is this attractive, Mel? Because I can tell you, 3 years ago, I did a conference in Epsom. We hired out a conference centre, and it was only 5 days before the event, and I thought I'd test something out. See how many of our members would come to Epsom for a freedom conference. We put it out there on email. Within 1 day, every single place in that conference centre was taken. I wasn't talking about how you pay your mortgage off or discharge your council tax. I only talked about freedom in the whole day. And many people who are watching this podcast won't even know we had a freedom conference. It was 1 day conference. I just tested the water to see whether it resonated with our membership. There were people queuing up outside for hours, even before the doors opened to the conference, who wanted to get in to see what it was we were going to deliver. The freedom plan. The whole day was about freedom. It was nothing to do with mortgages, recoupment of abandoned credit, council taxes, debts, court cases. None of that was even discussed. It was all about the freedom plan of the things I've just described, how I was going to finance it. So many of your audience won't know that I have created, 3 years ago, I created the Old Souls Nation Foundation. And its sole purpose is to finance the freedom plan. So how do we finance a worldwide, where up to 1 million in a community can operate independently of the cabal's agenda, with everything that you could ever need within the community? I'm not talking about people living in a shelter somewhere, they live wherever they want to live. But they have access to all of these infrastructure components as a member of Republic of Old Souls Freedom Plan, an envoy. How do you finance that? How do you finance 1 million people, up to 1 million people in that type of community? I'll tell you how you do it. When you've figured out exactly how currency is created all around the world, ex nihilo currency creation, the signature creates the credit that goes on the monopoly board. The nominees are paying taxes on that use of our credit, which we can recoup. I've been through it endless times on my webinars. It's in my books. It's in my technical papers on ecclesia law. Exactly how it all works. We've had checks. We've had results. We had 600 million of IRS confirmed recoupments last year. You had a confirmed recoupment last year, yeah?
I did, yeah.
Right? So let's take 20% of those recoupments, which, by the way, cost our membership nothing, because you recoup the 20%. So there is no cost to it. And you put it in that foundation. So let's imagine that 600 million came through in 2025, right, which was confirmed by the IRS. That gives us a budget of 120 million in Old Souls Nation Foundation to finance the Freedom Plan for our community. Do you know how much taxes are paid every year, Mel, by the nominees? That's the banks operating as nominees that are renting our energy and paying taxes to the United States Treasury.
I think you've put some figures out recently. It's in the billions, isn't it?
Yeah, the average of the last 3 years is $60 billion of taxes which are available for us to recoup. Okay, you can't recoup everything, but you can recoup the taxes that the nominees are paying the United States Treasury for the use of our energy, because that's what recoupment is. They're renting our energy on the monopoly board, and we can recoup the taxes, because that's what recoupment is. It's not recoupment of the mortgage, it's recoupment of the taxes that the nominee banks are paying to the United States Treasury. We haven't got time to go through A through Z of it. Come on my webinars, read my technical papers, and you'll begin to get your head around it, because it makes perfect sense when you unpack it and look at every component of it. Everything about it makes perfect sense. It's real. So if we can agree that there is no money of substance, there's only ledgers, there's only energy transference onto the monopoly board, and the cabal is using that energy and paying taxes to the United States Treasury, and those taxes belong back to us. That's $60 billion on average a year. If we had 20% of that, 60 billion a year, to finance our community, that would be enough, wouldn't it?
I reckon so.
What could we build with 20% 60 billion, yeah? With 12 billion a year, we could build something pretty special, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, how many people out there have tried to finance a freedom community? I've looked into this in lots of people, right?
Yeah, and it's less about finance, but it's more about trying to get the collective agreement and like-minded people that want to all move to a certain location, for example, or like the cabbie model, which is, having that community, and it could just be in your particular street. It doesn't have to be a whole town or city. So there's lots of theories, there's lots of great people out there trying to do this, but it ain't easy.
It's not easy, and I have studied every single one that I can find as to what they tried to do. Obviously, it didn't work that well, because otherwise we'd all be knowing about it, yeah?
Yeah.
So lots of people have tried this, right? You've got, if I just use the Amish as an example, right? There's an example of a community that does their own thing in their own way. Are they free of the nanobots? No. Will they have their minds and their souls taken over by the cabal? Probably. Have they got any strategy to defend against that? Probably not. So for those who are wondering, well, Iain, it sounds great. You get all this finance and you build this community, but how are you going to stop the nanobots? How are you going to stop the transhuman agenda? How are you going to stop that, right? There are technologies there today. In the next room, I have a Tesla plasma machine. Tesla was on this over 100 years ago. Plasma is the energy, right? Plasma energy is the energy of creation. You can convert electrical current into plasma energy, which is what the machine does, right? I use it every day. That has been proven to expel the nanobots from your body. You've got Masterpiece, which I think you may want to interview these guys that have developed Masterpiece.
Yeah.
This is a solution to get the nanobots out of your system. Because those nanobots that are in there, it doesn't matter whether you took the jab or not, they're in you. It's been proven. It's not just a theory. There's scientific studies. There's people that have analysed it. You can see if you magnify it down enough, everybody's got these nanobots in them. Everyone. So you've got to get rid of them, yeah? Well, how do you do that? There's always a solution, right? So if you've got the finances, which there's no money of substance, by the way, I keep on saying this. I know people, struggle to get their head around that, but there is no money of substance. There's only ledgers. So if you are entitled to recoup your abandoned credit, which everybody is, who's put the credit on the monopoly board, and you can use that to create a freedom community with all the infrastructure, which is why all these other groups failed, by the way, because they couldn't finance it. They weren't able to finance it. You can have 200 people living on the side of a hill with their own infrastructure, but eventually they have to involve themselves in the wider community, because it's very difficult to live, as Richard Phobes is discovering, right? He wants to go and live in the countryside. Well, you try and live in the countryside where you can't interact with anybody else. It's quite difficult, yeah? So that's why these communities didn't work. Great idea, love the energy behind it, love the intention, but they don't work because they have to interact with the matrix. They have to interact with others that are playing Monopoly at some point somewhere. And there's not enough of them. So you see, my vision for this, which is what I've been working on for years, is much bigger than a couple of hundred people living in a community, or 1,000 people, or even people that set up micronations that have come and gone don't last because they don't have the infrastructure. The infrastructure, you see, if you think of it like this, right? Take away your power, take away the internet, take away the money, take away the water. What have you got left? Take away the food, the trucks that go to the supermarkets. What have you got left? How are you going to live?
We've got to figure out how to grow your own food pretty quick.
Yeah. Where are you going to get your water from? There's no water from the tap anymore. There's no power on the electric supply. There's no internet. What are you going to do? You see, what they've done is they've enslaved all of us by giving us these conveniences, which, I'm now in North Cyprus, and for the last 6 weeks, and they came back 3 days ago, there was no water from the tap apart from 1 hour of the day. Now, how would most families get on if there was no water coming out of the tap?
It'd be a bloody nightmare, wouldn't it?
It'd be a nightmare, wouldn't it? How about if you wanted to, plug your electric cooker in or plug your microwave and there's no power? How are you going to cook your food? So you see, we've been conditioned to accept all these conveniences, and who controls all those conveniences? The cabal does. So even though people think they're free, yeah, Ian, I can go on holiday when I want to go. I can watch any movie I want. I can do what I want in my own house. I can do anything. So, well, what are you talking about? Well, you take all of that power away, water away, take the internet away, take the money away. What are you going to do now? So my remedy to that very complex problem is to build our own infrastructure. They can turn anything they want off if they turn it all off, as far as I'm concerned. And our community carries on going in freedom. That is why I do what I do, Mel. And anybody who's watched this who still thinks that I'm dreaming up fraud schemes, with the amount of ability that I've got, I know it might sound very arrogant, I really do not need to dream up fraud schemes to make money. I can make money in my sleep with my algorithms, my sports trading algorithms. I do not need to provide all of the infrastructure for a big team of people and keep on dreaming up new fraud ideas to make money. There is no money. I could recoup my credit, which I'm doing. I can trade the sports markets and never switch my computer on, Mel, if I really wanted to, because it's an automated system. So why would I sit here when my motivation is freedom and try and defraud people with a great big team of people to support? It makes no sense whatsoever, does it?
It doesn't.
Because it's not better.
No. I mean, most people don't know, an eighth or a tenth of what you are and what you're about. And it's only conversations like this that will get seen by, let's be honest, a niche group of people.
Yeah.
But at least, it's something, because as we know, everything, you have to start somewhere. And you might think that whatever you do in your day-to-day life isn't making much of an impact, but it is. It might take, that ripple effect might take days, months, years, or whatever, but it has an impact. And so even though I have a niche audience and I'm growing up to 11,000 subscribers, it will filter out even further. And absolutely, it makes no sense. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast to give, because I probably still have thoughts in my mind of certain people in the truth movement that I know and like a lot, and they don't agree with me and you in terms of still believing that you've scammed people. I get it all the time on the podcasts. Oh yeah, he scammed me out of 800 quid, or he scammed me out of 5 grand, never had anything back. And I will always answer those and say, that's not strictly true. You had the opportunity to convert it to a different service. You've chosen not to, I think. And if that's not the case, please get in touch and we'll sort it out. And I've done
Can I
that.
address that? I'd
Yeah,
like to address that now
yeah.
because there's a lot of myth going on here, right? So, Matrix Freedom was not a company. Simon Goldberg, Dan Needle, and others keep pumping out information that somehow Ian runs a company called Matrix Freedom that had a bank account that was providing promises and guarantees to people. And if you bought into those promises and guarantees and then didn't get the outcome, Ian, who's got no infrastructure, who's collecting all these funds, would just run away with them and have a great lifestyle living in Cyprus. Yeah. That's basically the narrative. Yeah. Well, let's unpack it, shall we, and look at the truth of it. Matrix Freedom was an unincorporated private members association with no bank account and never provided any services. So the people who paid for a service paid a member of Matrix Freedom, a member firm of Matrix Freedom, for an administrative service. And they received an administrative service. They never bought a guaranteed outcome, and they never paid me anything. They paid a firm, an organisation, a company that belonged to Matrix Freedom as a member. And if anybody's watching this who doubts what I'm saying, if you are one of those, oh, I paid Iain 800 quid, go and look at your contract. Nobody has ever paid me a penny, no, not a penny. I have not provided any services to anyone. What I do is I provide the strategy, I provide the technology, the knowledge and the technologies to design the protocols that we offer our members, and then they are delivered by separate firms that I don't control or have an ownership of. I can influence them and I can try and make them go in a certain direction, which I do. But take a look at where people are paying the money to. They're not paying Iain, and they're not paying Iain's company, because there never was an Iain's company. I provide a consultancy service. I'm consulting to the Republic of Old Souls because it is in need of technical knowledge and know-how and how to do all these protocols. Where do I send my invoice, Mel, do you think?
No idea.
I send it to you, shall I? Or shall I send it to the members? It doesn't work like that. It's not a company, and Iain's the CEO and the founder and the shareholder who's charging people for a service, guaranteeing that they're going to get the outcome that they're seeking. And then if they don't, he's refusing to give them the money back. It doesn't work like that. It's a myth. It's another one of these myths that people believe because the propaganda keeps pumping that story out. Now, what I have said, and all the way through, and you know this to be true, people who've paid for an administrative service that didn't get the outcome that they needed and wanted, they get a credit note from the administrative service provider to provide them with an alternative. And thousands of our members are doing that.
Yeah.
So that again isn't a myth, the truth, right?
Me included, yeah.
You included, right? So the best I can do is to make sure that people get what they want to get by evolving the organization and offering people a credit note, because I can make that happen. But no one's ever paid me anything. And all these myths about Iain's had 15 million. I mean, there's one story I've had 80 million, apparently, according to one blog I was reading recently. Apparently, I'm sitting here in North Cyprus with 80 million in my bank account. It's just, you can't make it up, but it's true. That's what some people believe, right?
Yeah.
So the reality of it is I'm not doing it for the money. There is no money. Nobody's ever paid me any money, and I can prove this on every single level. Those people that did pay for services got them. They might not have got the outcome that they were seeking, but they weren't buying a guaranteed outcome. They were buying an administrative service that they were directing. And everybody who has stayed the course will get the outcomes that they're seeking. Yeah. Many of them have already had outcomes. You know that to be true as well. So it's not like nobody's ever had any positive outcome from what we do. Lots of people have. And there will be a huge amount more. And if you then get into the mindset of why would the cabal keep trying to destroy what I do and put me in jail if I wasn't over the target? I'm going to say something very, very controversial now. You've had some people on your show who talk about certain ideologies, which, as you know, I don't believe in many of them. Yeah, and you know that. I've had that conversation with you.
Yeah.
Right? Why are they not being put in jail? I'll tell you the reason. Because what they're doing, and I'm not naming any names, what they're offering, the cabal already knows is never going to work. And it's never going to catch on. Which is why they don't try and put them in jail. They try and put people in jail to stop them from offering things that do work, that are going to take people to freedom and away from the slavery control model. If they were trying to put me in jail, Mel, for fraud, right? Because this is the story. This the Order 34, 2023, the FCA's, their entrapment by design model. Why is there nothing in that order about fraud? Nothing. Zero. Because it's not about that. They created that entrapment by design strategy to get rid of me, because they know that what I'm doing and what I'm working on is a viable solution to their control agenda. Why would they bother otherwise?
Exactly.
What would be the reason?
I think, and I've said this to you, and I don't know whether we've said it on a previous podcast, but the people in this movement, certainly the people that watch this show, they believe in common law, the Constitution. As you said earlier, everything we've been taught and told is a load of crap. History's a load of crap.
Yeah.
All the rights, the perceived rights that were given back to the people in the Magna Charta and all of this, has been stripped away again, day by day, decade by decade. And because that information has been passed down generation to generation for some of these people, not everybody, because loads of people ain't got a clue.
Yeah.
But it goes against the grain when you understand that everything, the system that we've been brought into and born into, where we have to pay for absolutely everything, and we've got a million taxes now, and you're even being taxed on your pension and this, that, and the other, to then pivot away from common law and the Magna Charta and the Great Constitution to going back to that evil system and be part of it to be able to create some abundance for yourself. I think for some people is a bridge too far, because they just see it as corruption. And in lots of ways it is, because all of that information and education has been kept from us on purpose. But because you are uniquely positioned to have been in all of the worlds, and you have that sort of brain that has over time, not straight away, started to piece it all together. And I've had my own experience, in the courts, and they couldn't give a rat's ass. As soon as you start talking about common law or whatever, you're a freeman of the land and don't talk such nonsense. And, you're automatically discredited in their eyes. And then you come away from that and you think, well, actually, yeah, me doing all of that is totally going against how they've created their career. And they walk in, with their robe on and blah, blah, blah. And by me doing this, it's completely discrediting what they do, and whether they believe in it or not is another matter. But it's what they do, and it pays them handsomely. Thank you very much. So it's people don't want to believe this, and I think there is a massive resistance to even wanting to entertain it, because this is the corrupt system run by the cabal. Why would we even want to educate ourselves and do it this way? It's more than just recouping money, and it's like that almost Braveheart kind of.
But let me explain my view on this, right? Very, very passionate view on this, right? I only want to work on things that have a very high probability of success. I don't have a lot of energy, or any energy, for things that are highly unlikely to work. When I look at what everybody's trying to do, and you look at it from, if you look at it forensically, not emotionally, if you look at it from the facts, if you look at it from evidence, if you look at it from that lens of fact and evidence, what most people are trying to do has no fact or evidence of it ever working. And that's what I see very, very clearly. I've tried everything all the people that you've had on your show, Mel. I'm not trying to undermine your show. Everything that your audience is watching and getting involved in, I have tried it all. And I know it doesn't work. because I've been and done it, right? Now, if it worked, everybody would be talking about it and everybody would be using it. But more and more people are trying to use things with no evidence of it actually working. I'm not talking right and wrong here. This is not about what's right and wrong. It's about what works and what doesn't work. So I know what does work, and you know that I know what works because we've been working on it together, right?
Yeah.
Now, I absolutely know that the truth and freedom community, however many millions there are in the world, don't want to play the game of Monopoly in the way that I play it. I know that. But the way I play Monopoly on that board works. And don't people want freedom from the Monopoly board of commerce and that control system? So if you want to play a different game, the one that's got no evidence of working, you can carry on playing that game and getting more and more stressed, and getting more and more frustrated, and getting more and more risk and cost and anxiety and all that negative energy. Or you can play the game that does work. Remove yourself from that stress, remove yourself from that negative place that most people are in, and return to freedom. I've tried all these different things that people talk about. There's nothing out there that I haven't already tried or completely researched and realized that it doesn't work. When you walk in a courtroom, the judges have seen 100, 1,000, 10,000 people who come in the courtroom with exactly the same presentment. They've already decided before you've even walked in there that you're lost.
That much I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But how many people are going to walk in the courtroom and try exactly what others have already tried that doesn't work? Lots. I don't like that, right? Because I don't want people to suffer from that. I want people to do things that do work. Now, your audience is going to say, yeah, Iain, but you've offered things that didn't work. I know we did. Because sometimes you've got to test the market out. You've got to test things out, yeah? Before you get to what does work. That's called evolution, by the way, right? Sometimes you don't know what's going to work until you try it out. We have tried some things in the past that didn't work out the way that everybody wanted them to. But what we're doing now does work. There's nothing that we're doing now that I couldn't stand up with a Bible and swear on my mother's life, and I would do that. There's nothing that we're offering today that I couldn't say with hand on my heart, this works, and believe it 100% with evidence to back it up. Can all these other people say that they've got evidence of what they believe in working? Because if they can find it, I can't find it, but they still believe in it. Now, again, I'm not undermining the people on your show because I love what they're trying to do. But I also know that many of these ideologies that people believe in make their situation worse. And I'll go one step further, Mel, because I'm a very, very deep thinker. Very deep. Is it possible that the cabal, the controllers, want people to believe in these ideologies? To distract them from the real game, which they're playing over here, whilst all these people over here are moving in these movements and ideologies, believing that they're going to work for them, trying them out, getting frustrated, trying something else out, get frustrated, trying something else out, whilst actually what's really going on is over here and no one's looking in that direction. Because that is the art of war. You distract the enemy. You see, if we are the enemy, because we're seeking freedom, those that are running the war against us are going to distract us all the time. They distract us with the media. They distract us with war. They distract us with pandemics. They distract us with all of these ideologies, which may have been put out there by them to distract us. Wouldn't be the first time in a war that the enemy has put false information out there? Wouldn't be. In nearly every war it goes on. Why is there a secret service? Why is there intelligence? Why are there psyops? There's so much out there. I talk to members all the time. I get messages from members all over the world because, you know, again, we're not just in the UK. A lot of people don't realise this. We've got members in Australia, in Canada, in New Zealand, in the US, lots of US members, Europe. We get people send me all sorts of stuff, right? Can you look at this? Can you look at that? There are movements and pockets of movements all over the world that believe in different things. Where did all that come from? Where did that? If you go back 40 years, 30 years, there was no such thing as a freedom movement. It wasn't.
There's always been like a slither of it, hasn't there? If you think about the
Cromwell, go all the way back, who wanted to, you know, defeat the, you know, wanted to blow Parliament up. There's always been agitators. There's been people that are anti-establishment. There's people that don't like the rule of law and all that kind of thing. But when I've researched this, right? What is the origins of the freedom movement? It starts in America. It pretty much started in America and then it was spread out because the internet came in and there was more information and people started reading and learning about ideologies. And then movements and pockets and people spread, the word spreads and more people believe them, and then communities come together. It starts in America. And as you know, because I've said this endless times, the United States Incorporated is the center of the cabal system. Is it possible that they put all these belief systems out there to distract a lot of the people that are seeking freedom? I say it's very possible. Because they already know they don't work. What's the outcome of following an ideology that doesn't work? You could end up in jail. You could end up losing your house. You could end up being made bankrupt. You could end up with all sorts of problems, yeah? Don't they want to cause us problems? Isn't their agenda to cause us stress and anxiety? So is it possible that all these ideologies have been planted? Is it possible that Bitcoin was invented by them? Is it possible that cryptocurrency was created by the very same people who want to mislead you to go down that pathway, to believe that's the route to freedom, but it's actually created by them? I say it's very possible. So you see, I literally have spent 16 years studying this in great detail. It's what I do, Mel. As you know.
Yeah.
And I have a mind that I can put the components together when I've got enough information and enough experience, which I didn't have a lot of at the beginning. Now I've got exhaustive experience and exhaustive knowledge of everything I've reviewed and investigated. I can see, it's very clear to me what's going on. It's very clear to me that there's, in my strong opinion, there's only one way to beat them at their own game. And that is to play their game better than they play it, which is the art of legal warfare, which is recoupment of abandoned credit, which is using ministries and trusts in the way that we use them, use their game, play their game better than they play it. That is how to beat them, and then create your own community where you do not have any reliance on them at all. Because as soon as you rely on their infrastructure, you're fucked. Because they've got you. Because you can't live without their water, their energy, their internet, their money, their whatever it is. Their supermarket trucks. We're all relying on them all the time. And people think that they're already free. Nobody's free. Not in the way that I think the audience wants to be free. So we've all got a choice. We can carry on down the pathway that they're taking us down, and make no mistake about it, they're taking us down a pathway. They are. Or we can create our own pathway. And we can get enough of us to come together where we don't need their infrastructure. And then we can run our lives the way we want to run them, playing their game better than them to create our own freedom. And that is why I spend 7 days a week working on this.
Yeah.
Because these fuckers aren't ever going to beat that idea. They're not going to beat that. They just can't beat that. You game theory it out. You play the game better than them. How can they beat you at their game when you're playing it better than they play it? They can't. But you can't do it on your own, which is why I built this. Because I could recruit millions and millions of my abandoned credit. I could have done it last year. If I had done that, Mel, just hear me out, right? Given the knowledge that I've got, and you know I've got deep knowledge on how to recruit abandoned credit. You've seen, enough to believe in it, right? Mm. If I just wanted to do that for myself, I could have started that in 2024 when we started doing abandoned credit recruitment. I would have had my millions last year before the sabotage event. There wouldn't have been a sabotage event if I was just recouping my own abandoned credit. And I'd be sitting here today, not with an interview with you. I'd be sitting here today with my millions in the bank, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
But would that give me freedom? Having had millions in the bank before, I didn't have any freedom then either, because I'm totally reliant on their system. So I don't do it like that. I want a community. We've already got one. I want a bigger one to come together. That conference, Mel, that I did 3 years ago, I have to tell you, it beats any other day in my entire life this time round. The energy in that room, I can't describe it. I stood at the front with a big audience talking about the freedom plan, and the energy in the room that I could feel, that positive energy, the light, love energy that came from the audience was unbelievable. That is the power that we all have, right? We have that power. Collectively, that room, there was nothing that Cabal could have done in that room, nothing. It wasn't people fighting, screaming with banners. It was love, light, energy. Off the chart powerful. More powerful than anything that Cabal's got access to. And they know it. So when we come together as a community that is tuned into that energy, where we don't need their infrastructure, we are indestructible.
Yeah.
And then I do agree with David Icke that says we should all stand up and say no. But we don't stand up and say no without a plan. You have to have a plan to beat the enemy. I have a plan. Whether people agree with me, disagree with me, is up to them. But enough people do already agree with me, by the way. There are enough of us already to make it work. If the recoupments had come through last year in the way that they should have done, without the sabotage event, we'd already have a massive budget to be rolling out the freedom plan now. It's going to happen.
I know. Well, we could talk for hours. I mean, I've wanted to split off to, the 3D, 5D split and all of that. My mind's gone everywhere while you've been talking, but we've been over 2 hours already, I think. So we need to bring this particular episode to a close. I think if people are still watching at this point, because I know we will have lost some, but those that are still watching, I think they're going to be quite surprised at everything that you've spoken about today. I don't know whether you've spoken as much as that in terms of the freedom stuff on other podcasts, or whether the people that watch my show would watch those podcasts. But it's yeah, I think people are going to be quite surprised. I think there's going to be a few raised eyebrows, and I think there will be a shift of attitude in some of the people that have sat and watched, if they were on the negative side or if they were sat on the fence. Um, because you're quite right. Why the hell would you be here? Like, why? Why the hell would you be here? You don't need to be here.
I
Um,
don't need to be.
and
I don't need to do this.
it's
I
bloody hard
can
work.
easily.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
bloody
don't
hard
need
work.
to do. Yeah,
You're not seeing, your wife, you're not seeing your family, you're spending all your time doing this for to empower mankind to be able to, like you say, live independently away from the fuckers that are trying to
yeah,
kill us off, basically.
totally.
Um, so, well, yeah. Thank you for the last 2.5 hours. I know, honestly, I don't know where you get your energy from. It's obviously that Tesla machine next door, but
Well, everyone, see, everybody in our community, I'm going to provide those Teslas because we're going to manufacture them and we're going to provide them to our members. That was my plan. We would have already been doing it now if it hadn't been for the sabotage. It's awesome, Mel. Honestly, everyone should have one.
mm,
It is absolutely. It's TZLR Club. If you want to go and look into it, tzlr.club. Have a look into it. I'm not. I'm not on commission. I'm not. I don't. They don't even know that I ever talk about it, right? But it is awesome. Plasma energy is the spark. It's the God spark, right? It's where all the energy comes from.
yeah.
It's
Well,
chi.
I feel at the moment my body feels so old. And I think a lot of it is the stress of the last 12 months that's impacting me, but it's also menopause and the woman's body is changing and losing things, and then that creates pain and joint pain and all of that. So and we've been talking about med beds for years, and I'm told that's a load of crap, but there's something better out there, and who knows what's right and what's wrong. But yeah, to have something like that that could make me feel 10 years younger, that's all I want.
I think if you did the three things, right? If you did masterpiece,
Yeah, I've been looking at that.
with the plasma, the plasma energy, and if you did peptides, yeah,
Okay.
all of them are banned by the cabal, by the way.
Yeah, well, obviously. Obviously.
Masterpiece, the guy who brought it into the world is jailed. Tesla, they stripped him of all of his technologies and then rubbished him. Yeah, and the guys who make the plasma machine can only make it in Mexico because they try to jail him everywhere else. So you got to ask the question: why would they bother try to jail all those three, and why would they bother trying to jail me if we weren't over the target?
Exactly.
And I'll leave
Exactly.
I'll leave the show on that note.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and will make people go, "Oh, he's got a point, actually." Um, okay. Where should we send people, Ian? Have you got a just a dedicated site at the moment for the nation, the growing of the nation?
And well, we've got the Great Escape protocols, which are all the sort of on the monopoly board solutions that we provide to the membership. That's the Great Escape. We've got loads of websites. I'm sure that we can find a link if people want to know more. Put it underneath the show. And what I want to do, I had forgotten this, but I do a webinar every Saturday. And what I do is I take a particular problem that the members have sent to me. Can you look into this particular problem? So things like council tax, mortgage foreclosure, all these different problems, the farmers, the track and trace, the digital ID. I've done webinars on all these different subjects on how can you solve it with things that actually work. We get a very big audience, and you don't have to pay for it. And if you don't like it, you can switch it off.
Yeah.
But the feedback I get every single time is off the chart. The testimonials, the feedback, new membership growth. It's not where I want it to be, but it is growing because of all the propaganda. It's difficult to recruit new people, right?
Yeah.
But it won't defeat us because there'll come a point where there's a tipping point, and then gradually we'll get to that point, and then after we get to that tipping point, we won't be able to cope with the number of people that want to join.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would love you to promote we do a Saturday webinar every Saturday. This Saturday, I'm talking about a subject which a lot of people probably won't know about, but there's over 100,000 people in the UK today who are battling against bankruptcy and suicide, thoughts of suicide, because HMRC are closing down on them because they got involved in tax avoidance schemes in the past. And I'm doing a webinar on how to solve that problem.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm asking the members, what do you want me to do a webinar on? And people send me their messages and I look at them. We put them in our Telegram channel. People say whether they're interested or whether they're not. And then I will come up with a protocol that will solve the problem.
Yeah.
There's no problem on the Monopoly board that we can't solve. No, there's none. Zero.
I think you said about that tax evasion issue. That's a bigger problem. Am I right in saying this than the post office scandal?
Yeah. I mean, you're not talking about, super elite celebrities that did tax avoidance. There's 70,000 people that took their remuneration through trust structures called EBTs that were just regular folk. And then HMRC retrospectively changed the law, tax law, went back 15 years plus, and then taxed people on income or remuneration that they had 15 to 20 years ago, all the way through. Suddenly you've got a 250, 300,000 tax bill to pay.
It is ludicrous how they're getting away with that.
This 3.4 billion of taxes that HMRC is trying to collect from people right now. And they are psychopathic in how they want to collect them. So that's my webinar this Saturday. Last Saturday I did council. Did I do council tax last Saturday? No, I did abandoned credit last Saturday. The previous Saturday I did mortgage foreclosure. So what I'm doing is I'm listening to the vibe of our membership as to what they want me to talk about next.
Yeah.
And it's not just me talking about it. I break it all down and I provide all the evidence of how you can solve it. And then if there's enough demand, we then roll it out to the members as a protocol.
Yeah. And you publish those.
And these things work.
And you do a load of technical papers, which is on ecclesia law. And people can go and read all of that. It's all free of charge.
There's about 50 research papers at Ecclesia Law Institute, ecclesia as in the ecclesiastical. And I write all those papers to show people everything about what I'm doing, Mel, is out there. I don't hide anything. Others out there, you have to pay to get into behind their paywall, right? Everything that I'm doing is all out there on Ecclesia Law, on our websites, on our webinars, in our platform. It's all free. I don't hide anything.
Yeah.
Now the cabal doesn't like that either, right?
No.
Because a lot of people want to keep their solution or their remedy secret. They want to hide it behind a closed door. You've got to pay me something to get into this, into my environment, and then you can have a look and see what we're doing. I don't do it like that. I just put it all out there, everything. You could actually read all my research papers and copy everything we're doing today.
Yeah.
All that knowledge that I've put into my research papers, people could go and copy it all now and get exactly the same results that we get for our members. How many people do that? Hardly anyone. It ain't easy. Even if you know how to do it, it's not easy to roll it out, right?
No, definitely not. No, it's fraught with, it's like a tightrope, isn't it? Okay, well, let's bring it to a close. Thank you again for your time and for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. And I personally want to thank you for everything you've done for me personally over the last few months. It's been over and above what I would have expected. So thank you very much.
Well, hopefully one day soon we'll be able to talk about it when you're ready.
Yeah,
I'd like that.
definitely. All right. Thanks, Ian.